Welcome back to Iowa Live. A fascinating performance is going to be happening a little later on tonight, and we have some details on what is going on. Come From Away is the name of the performance, and we just heard the story of one of the pilots involved with the real-life experience that happened on 9/11 and 9/12, and that's what we're talking about here this morning, folks, is what happened in Canada. Remember when everything was grounded and all the planes that landed in one small community up in Canada, Jackie, and 7,000 people were stranded.
And stranded not only in this community, but on the physical plane, correct? Beverly Bass, a captain with American Airlines, was flying the plane, one of them that landed in Gander, Newfoundland. It's a matter of, there was also a little stress and a new community that was created on that plane because once you landed, you weren't able to hop off right away.
No, there were a lot of logistics involved in transporting that many passengers, you know, to all the local towns and the motels and all the places they were going to be staying. And the school bus drivers were actually on strike when we landed.
Oh no!
Yes.
That's your transportation right there.
It was.
How many people
indeed.
were on your plane?
I had 156,
okay,
and the airplane holds 247. So fortunately, I wasn't full, which made it nice because we were on the airplane for 28 hours.
28 hours?
Before we deplaned.
What about supplies that were on board? What kind of supplies?
Well, we only had one meal service left to do, and so they treated that as dinner. We landed about 10:15 in the morning on 9/11, and then, of course, the Canadians went into action, and they supplied the airplanes with water and Nutri-Grain bars and diapers and formula and smoking patches back then.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. Amazing story.
I know. It's an unbelievable story.
Yeah.
So what did it mean to you when you heard that this story, your story, essentially, was being told in this musical called Come From Away?
Well, we actually went back on the 10th anniversary of 9/11 to Gander, and that's where we met the playwrights. And, you know, we did a lot of interviews, and they were usually very short, you know, for the evening news. And when I did the interview at the playwrights, it lasted 4 hours. But, you know, I didn't even think that much about it. I didn't know what playwrights were. I didn't know what they did. And I went home, went back to Texas. And then 4 years later, I got a call from the producers inviting us to the world premiere opening in La Jolla. So the first night I saw the show, I really didn't know anything about it.
And something that still tears me up from watching previous interviews with you, Beverly, is what happened when you and your husband watched that first show?
It was very challenging. And in the first 5 minutes of the show, when she rolls out her chair and picks up the phone and says, "Tom, I'm fine. My husband is Tom." My husband buried his head in his hands, and I would say we missed 75% of the first show. It was so emotional, but you know, I know this sounds strange, but it was emotional in a good way because they portrayed us so beautifully in the show. So I'm very honored the way the writers wrote the show. It's incredible.
Yeah, and I think I tear up still just hearing you say that because on that day when we all know where we were, we all kind of had that moment, even if we weren't anywhere near New York, we called a loved one and said,
"Oh,
I'm okay, are you okay?"
Yes.
Let's talk about the incredible lady that gets to portray you while she's here in Des Moines. That's Marika Aubrey. Thank you so much for being here. I apologize.
I
want to talk to you too because I want to know what it's like to be this incredible lady in this production.
Well, Bev just spoke about honor, and that's the actual word for it, isn't it? We have this rare wonder as a company to portray real people, and not only real people, but people we interact with. We've all met our real-life counterparts and met the Newfoundlanders and had this incredible experience of getting to know each other, and we all feel part of bringing this show to life, and so that's just magnificent and surreal and such an honor.
Well, there's an incredible takeaway from this because it doesn't want to necessarily focus on what happened on 9/11, but what happened on 9/12, and that is strangers coming together and unifying and supporting one another and creating a new community, correct?
That's right. It's about helping each other and being kind and compassionate at a time when, if we all can remember how scary it felt in those few days afterwards, and these people were all stranded in a place that a lot of them had never heard of, and you know, the hospitality and the wonder of the Gander people and what they did for those stranded passengers is just such a lesson in how we can all help each other even when it's hard.
Yeah, just being in a different country, not only a different area, just a totally different country. And Beverly, you mentioned that even some of the people that live there took in some of the people. Is that correct?
They did. Some of the homes had as many as 10 passengers.
10.
And they didn't even speak the same language. I think 90 countries were represented
Oh my
on all
goodness.
the airplanes.
I didn't even think about that.
Can you
aspect of it.
explain, because
Yeah.
I've heard you mention before, why Gander? Because you immediately assumed you're going to a major metropolis and they sent you to Gander, but there's a reason for that.
We did. And there's actually a line in the show that addresses that. We were sent to the outlying communities that were smaller because if anything did go wrong, they didn't want a populous city to be involved.
Really?
But there's also a specific airstrip in that area that can help support those planes, correct?
Yeah, the airport is great. The infrastructure is very small.
But the airport was accommodating, though.
Oh,
Right?
very,
Very
much so.
tight spaces.
But you made it, though.
Oh, yes.
And I want to emphasize that even though this is a moment when we think back to where we were on that day and a tear might come to your eye and you remember, this is a celebration. This is going to be a lot of fun to go watch this musical tonight.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real show about how something good can come out of even the most horrible and horrific of circumstances. And our show isn't a downer at all, even though it's about something really important, because you meet so many great characters and hear so many uplifting stories, and the music of the show is its life force and is so joyful. So people generally leave the theatre very happy.
I was going to say, you probably leave feeling good.
Yeah,
with
I'd
the
say
whole
so. I
experience.
hope so.
And,
Yeah,
and
that's
if
the whole
anyone
idea.
knows anything
Yeah.
about this musical, Me in the Sky, if this lady's belting it out, I cannot wait, because that song is
Isn't it
incredible.
fabulous?
Have you
I know.
tried getting on stage and belting out that
Oh,
number,
no,
Beverly?
they'll never ask me to stand in.
Have you ever had a walk-on part at all?
No.
No, not at all.
I can't sing and I can't dance. But I'm thinking She Can't Fly might
Oh,
check.
I was going to
bet
say,
you're right,
but
yeah.
for some reason, some tells me you're one
How many
heck
times
of a person.
have you
to play.
seen this performance?
Tonight will be 148.
148.
And I think my 14th opening tonight.
Wow.
Yes.
Absolutely
Yeah.
amazing.
I've been all over the world with the show, as have all of us.
It's incredible. Okay, so Come From Away, Broadway back in town. This is the one I've been personally waiting for as a little musical theater nerd in the group. So January 28th, that's the day it opens, and only until February 2nd. So you want to get your tickets. You can do that super easy. Go to dmpa.org or just stop by the Des Moines Performing Arts box office. This is the one everyone's going to be buzzing about this theater season. So don't miss your opportunity to see this incredible performance.
You know, this is a big deal when they even have socks that have their name on. Check this out. We have Come From Away
That's
socks
how it
that we are
works.
sporting.
I love
Little airplanes on there, but absolutely, this is going to be an amazing show.
Before we go,
Thank
Beverly,
you.
I want you to speak to our audience that might be watching this morning. What do you say to those females out there that have the passion and the drive that you did as a little 9-year-old girl, saying, I want to be a pilot, I want to be a captain, can I do it?
Well, you know, the greatest thing about today is that the doors have opened really for women in every aspect of life. There isn't one job that we aren't capable of doing. When I started flying, you couldn't get into the military. Today, women can be combat pilots and they can be astronauts, so that we can do anything today.
A beautiful note to end on. Thank you both, and cannot
Thank you.
wait to see this production.
Thank you.
Get your tickets, dmpa.org. Come From Away, Broadway is back in town, courtesy of Des Moines Performing Arts.